Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. I am Renee, 30 years old, buttoning my coat for Sunday dinner at my parents' when my phone buzzed. A text from Evan, my lawyer. Call me immediately. My hands trembled as I dialed. What he told me froze my blood. My parents, the people I trusted most, were being investigated for massive fraud. The $50,000 I planned to invest in their business tonight would vanish along with them. I sat down hard, the room tilting. 6 months earlier, I had moved back to Charlotte after my divorce from Eric. 10 years of marriage dissolved into papers and property divisions, leaving me emotionally gutted but financially stable. He left me for his 23-year-old assistant. The settlement, at least, was fair. I bought a modest townhouse near downtown and returned to my career as a marketing executive. Starting over at 30 was never my plan, but having my parents nearby made it bearable. Carolyn and Leonard Price, my parents, were pillars of the community. My father, a financial advisor, helped families plan for retirement and college funds. Certificates and awards decorated his office like armor. My mother sold high-end real estate to Charlotte professionals and served on multiple charity boards. They attended church every Sunday, hosted neighborhood barbecues, and never missed a chance to brag about their daughter in marketing. When Eric left, they rallied around me. Mom came for 2 weeks, cooking comfort food and helping me sort through a decade of shared life. Dad handled the mortgage company, the insurance adjuster, and credit card issues. Family is all that matters in the end, he would say, patting my shoulder when I cried over photo albums. Blood is thicker than water, Renee. We will always be here. Evan Walker entered my life as my divorce attorney, recommended by a college friend. Efficient, direct, and empathetic, he guided me through the legal maze. I retained him for my home purchase, too. He negotiated terms I would have missed and flagged pitfalls I did not see. We kept in touch with occasional coffee meetings about my financial planning. 2 months ago, my parents invited me to dinner with big news. A new venture in luxury vacation rentals on the North Carolina coast. They said they already had 2 properties in Wrightsville Beach, and were securing more near Emerald Isle. Mom showed photos of sparkling decks over bright sand. Dad spread spreadsheets across the table with projected income and tidy growth charts. We are offering this opportunity to a select group of family and close friends, Dad said, tapping a column. Early investors get priority profit distribution for 5 years. They suggested I invest $50,000 from my settlement. The timing seemed perfect. I was rebuilding. The returns looked strong. Working with my parents felt safe. Over the next weeks, they shared more, a business name, Atlantic Coastal Retreats, call introductions with their property manager, Caleb, though technical glitches kept his camera dark. Each conversation seemed to confirm their competence. Tonight was to be the culmination. Dinner at their house, signatures, and a new chapter in my life. I had the cashier's check ready in my purse. Renee, Evan said when I called him back, I discovered something while checking records for another client. Your parents' names appear in multiple fraud lawsuits across 3 counties. There is a pattern dating back years, different business names, similar schemes. There must be a mistake, I said, my voice rising. They are respected. Dad has managed investments for decades. That is how they build trust, Evan replied gently. They have settled privately, moved between states, and operated under various business names. The properties they showed you? Records do not list them as owners. His tone tightened. Do not sign anything. Do not give them money. I am concerned they are preparing to disappear with investors' funds. After we hung up, I sat frozen, his warnings echoing. Could my parents, who taught me to return extra change, really be con artists? Evan emailed court documents. With shaking fingers, I opened them. Lawsuits in North Carolina and neighboring states named Carolyn and Leonard Price as defendants in fraud cases. One complaint described a retired couple pushed into investing their savings in a non-existent restaurant franchise. Another detailed an exclusive investment group for luxury condominiums that never materialized. The plaintiffs' names hit like a bell. The Robinsons, who moved suddenly when I was in high school. The Parkers, close family friends until a mysterious falling out. Mrs. Whitfield, my former piano teacher, who stopped speaking to my parents after a special opportunity. Inconsistencies throughout my life slid into place. We moved quickly during my childhood, always for better opportunities. My parents guarded business details, Office doors locked when I brought friends home. They discouraged deep friendships, repeating that family was forever. When my college boyfriend Brian, a finance major, asked Dad technical questions, Dad grew defensive. They pushed me to end it. At the time, I called it protective. Now I wondered. Despite Evan's warning, I went to dinner. I needed to see them, to test what I knew. Their elegant colonial home glittered under porch lights. A new luxury sedan shone in the driveway. Mom's diamond earrings flashed larger than before. Original art replaced the store-bought prints. "Renee, darling," Mom said, hugging me in a cloud of designer perfume. We have been counting the minutes. Dad's gold watch glinted as he guided me to appetizers and champagne. Everything looked perfect, the careful table setting, the aroma of pot roast. But details jabbed. Dad's phone buzzed constantly, pulling him outside for hushed calls. Mom checked the time, mentioning we should sign quickly so dinner would not get cold. "We have all the documents right here," she said, sliding a folder toward me. "Simple signatures, and you are part of Atlantic Coastal Retreats." The paperwork listed unfamiliar partners. Anthony Coleman, Patrice Wheeler, Gerald Vaughn. "Who are these?" I asked lightly. "Just legal structures for tax purposes," Dad said too fast. "Nothing to worry about." Mom refilled my glass. "Your investment is secured against the properties. Guaranteed returns begin next quarter." More contradictions surfaced. Last week there were 4 new properties. Tonight it was 6. Profit distributions had gone from 6 months to immediate. The business address had shifted from Wrightsville Beach to Carolina Beach with no explanation. "We should sign before the notary's time runs up," Mom said, uncapping an elegant pen. "Sunday service is extra." Pressure mounted in a warm, smiling room. "Before we sign," I said, keeping my tone pleasant, "I would love to see those updated projections you mentioned." The cashier's check stayed buried in my purse. Dad's expression flickered with impatience. "We can review projections after. The important thing is locking in your position," he said. "There are 3 other investors ready if you need more time," Mom added, her voice edged. "The Colemans called yesterday, practically begging to increase their stake." I excused myself. In the hallway, Dad's briefcase sat half open. Inside lay plane tickets to San Juan, Puerto Rico, one-way departing Tuesday. Mom had mentioned nothing about traveling. My heartbeat roared in my ears as I rejoined them. "Let us just wash up and plate dinner," I said, smiling. Then, claiming a work call, I slipped into Dad's office, a room off limits during gatherings. The door was unlocked. Inside, leather-bound planners lined the shelves, files in crisp rows. But a corkboard on the wall caught my eye. It was covered with travel brochures for San Juan, St. Thomas, and Guam, annotated with notes about jurisdictions that could complicate mainland enforcement. In a drawer, a folder labeled ACR, investors listed names, amounts, and contact information totaling over $3 million across 18 months. I recognized many: family, friends, church members, elderly neighbors. Another drawer held a locked box. The key was beneath the desk blotter. Dad never changed hiding places. Inside were 4 passports, 2 with my parents' photos but different names: Walter and Elaine Carter. 2 more under Howard and Regina Miles. Multiple driver's licenses and credit cards matched these identities. A notebook detailed exit strategies. Assets to liquidate, accounts to close, a timeline for disappearing. On one page, my name appeared with a note: 50,000 secured. Close loop after transfer. I was the final mark. Footsteps approached. I restored everything, stepped into the hall with my phone to my ear, and returned to the dining room. Mom's eyes scanned me. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Work," I said. "Minor fire to put out." At the table, they chatted about a business trip next week to scout more properties. No mention of San Juan. "We will manage your investment remotely," Dad said between bites. "Caleb will handle day-to-day operations." "When do I meet the other investors?" I asked, keeping my tone mild. "Perhaps a group meeting before your trip." Their glances collided and broke apart. "Everyone is busy," Mom replied smoothly. "Many are out-of-state investors who trust our management implicitly." Dad's phone rang again. He stepped onto the porch and before the door closed, I heard him say, "We need to move now. She is getting suspicious." The last of my doubt evaporated. When he returned, his warmth had cooled to calculation. "Who have you been talking to?" he asked. "Does it matter?" I said. "What matters is that you plan to take my money and fly to San Juan on Tuesday." Mom's glass rattled, red wine spilling across the white cloth. You went through your father's things, she said, not quite a question. Like father, like daughter, I replied, voice steady. Apparently, I learned investigation from the best. The performance fell away. You do not understand how the world works, Dad said, tone all business. Everyone is trying to take advantage. By stealing from elderly neighbors, church friends, and your own daughter? I asked. We prefer aggressive investment strategy, Mom said, almost cool. Nobody forces people to invest. They chase returns. How long? I whispered. How long have you been doing this? Dad shrugged. 25 years. Credentials and confidence go further than facts. The timeline meant my childhood was financed by theft. You were going to steal from me, I said. Business is business, he replied. You have always been too trusting. We taught you about family loyalty because it makes people predictable. Before you make this worse, I said, standing, understand that I know names, dates, amounts. The Robinsons, the Parkers, Mrs. Whitfield. Your planned escape. Mom's face tightened. Dad's eyes narrowed. Think very carefully about your next steps, Renee, he said. You stopped being my family the moment I became a mark, I answered. I left them with a cooling pot roast and a contract I would never sign. In an empty parking lot, I called Evan. You were right, I said, voice breaking. 30 minutes later, at his office under the low hum of weekend security lights, I laid out what I had found. False identities, investor lists, exit plans. I could have been just another victim. Evan listened, then opened his laptop. He had already found news articles about similar scams in nearby states. Suspects whose descriptions fit my parents under different names. Property records showing rapid acquisitions and flips, business registrations appearing and vanishing in months. I contacted Detective Harris with Charlotte's Financial Crimes Unit, he said. She is investigating a larger pattern. By morning, I sat across from Detective Alana Harris, a focused woman with steel in her gaze. Your parents operate what we call an affinity fraud, she said, arranging photos and documents. They target communities where they have social trust, churches, neighborhoods, professional associations. The family connection adds another layer. A map bristled with pins. Over 50 people across 3 states had lost savings, from $20,000 to $500,000. Most never report, Detective Harris said. Embarrassment, family ties. Your testimony could be crucial. Can any money be recovered? I asked. Potentially, she said. We believe they have routed funds through layered accounts, including institutions in Puerto Rico. With solid evidence, some assets may be traced. That afternoon, I met Loretta Green, a 78-year-old retired nurse who had invested her late husband's life insurance with my mother 2 years earlier. $200,000, her entire safety net. Carolyn was so kind, Loretta said, hands trembling around her teacup. She brought meals after Harold died. Said she considered me family. Loretta's grief mirrored my own. I could rebuild. She faced an uncertain future on Social Security and part-time work. They were so convincing, she whispered. I never questioned them. Her trust steadied my resolve. We need recorded evidence, Detective Harris said when we reconvened. Your parents operate just under thresholds and leave before patterns coalesce. With your help, we can get them on record. You want me to wear a wire? The idea chilled me. It is the most direct path, she said. You would call, express regret, say you want back in better, say you want to learn the business. Ask how they identify targets, move money, and establish new identities. I agreed. That evening in a hotel room, a technician set up a modified phone that would transmit our conversation to officers nearby. My safe phrase, if I felt endangered, would be, I need to think about the timeline. Evan insisted on waiting in the surveillance van. Stay curious, not accusatory, he said. The next night, suitcases stood in my parents' foyer. Mom opened the door, surprised. We did not expect you. I have been thinking, I said, heart thudding. Can we talk? Dad appeared behind her, wary. About what? The business, I said. About everything. I may have overreacted, I added. They traded looks. Mom stepped aside. Come in. The living room showed the haste of packing. Blank spaces where art had hung, open cabinets. You have been doing this for 25 years, I said, perching on the sofa's edge. That means real profits. Marketing pays well, but not like this. Maybe instead of only investing, I should learn the family business. Shock flickered across their faces. You want to join us? Mom asked. Why not? I said, taking on their pragmatic tone. You are right, people are gullible. Everyone is out for themselves. 3 working together is more efficient than 2. Dad sat slowly, studying me. It is not an easy life. Constant movement. New identities. Always looking over your shoulder. But the rewards compensate, I said, gesturing at the luxury that still filled the room. If I am in, I need to understand everything. For the next hour, they explained. Dad described hunting grounds. Affluent enclaves with strong social networks where trust transfers by association. Churches are gold, he said. Once a pastor or respected elder invests, others follow. People assume someone else has done the due diligence. Mom detailed how they establish credibility. Join civic groups, make visible donations, befriend influential community members. We always start with legitimate fronts, she said. Leonard actually ran a financial office at first. I sold real estate. Licenses and credentials are our foundation. They outline targets. Recent widows, retirees with savings, busy professionals with money, but little time for research. Make them ask for inclusion, Dad said. People value what they pursue more than what is handed to them. Exit strategies came next. They gradually moved money through layered accounts, prepared new identities years in advance, and disappeared just before suspicion turned into investigation. We typically net 1 to 3 million per cycle, Dad said. 4 to 5 years in one location is the sweet spot. Long enough to build trust, not long enough to be cornered. I asked about the Robinsons and Mrs. Whitfield. Jim Robinson started asking about property titles, Dad said without remorse. We accelerated our timeline and left Charlotte for a while. And the fire at your office before the audit? I asked softly. Insurance bonus, he said, almost amused. Destroyed problematic records and collected $200,000. When I had everything, I gave the signal. This timeline seems rushed. When exactly were you planning to tell me about San Juan? After we were settled, Mom admitted. We would have sent for you eventually, Dad added, shrugging. Or returned some of your investment. Family discount. The doorbell rang. Mom frowned. Are you expecting someone? Yes, I said, standing as realization crossed their faces. Associates who are very interested in your strategies. Detective Harris entered with 4 officers, badges displayed. Carolyn and Leonard Price, you are under arrest for investment fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The change in my parents was immediate. Mom crumpled into sobs. Dad's face hardened into contempt. You recorded us, he spat as an officer cuffed him. Your own parents. I learned from the best, I said, my voice steady though my chest ached. Family first, right? The aftermath came in waves. Local media seized on the story. Respected community members revealed as serial fraudsters exposed by their daughter. Some called me brave. Others asked how I could turn in my parents. Friends split into camps. Those who had invested thanked me. Others stopped speaking to me. The legal process ground forward. My parents hired expensive attorneys who specialized in financial crimes. They cast their activities as aggressive but legal strategies and unfortunate misunderstandings. I testified before a grand jury and later in court, providing context for the recordings. Facing them in the witness box hollowed me out and made me stronger. Prosecutors traced layered accounts and located approximately $2 million. Only a fraction of decades of theft, but enough to begin restitution for recent victims. 3 months after the arrest, I visited them at the county jail. Plexiglass divided us. Why did you come? Dad asked, no warmth in his eyes. To understand, I said. Was any of it real? Any part of my childhood? Mom leaned forward. We love you, Renee. That was never fake. We just understand the world differently. You were planning to steal from me, I said. Business and family are separate, Dad interjected. Even then, truth could not pass their lips without distortion. I stood to go. You taught me integrity matters, I said. Thank you for that, even if you did not believe it yourselves. When we get out, Dad called after me, we can start fresh, a new venture together. His words confirmed what I already knew. They would never change. A year later, I relocated to Atlanta for a senior marketing role at a technology firm. My Charlotte townhouse sold quickly, one more cut thread. The trial ended in guilty verdicts on multiple counts. Dad received 12 years. Mom received 8 due to her secondary role. Restitution was ordered, though many would recover only cents on the dollar. Healing began in therapy. Dr. Whitaker specialized in family betrayal trauma. You are grieving parents who still live, she said. You are grieving a relationship that never existed as you believed. It is a profound loss. Anger took the longest to untangle. Anger at them, and at myself for not seeing sooner. How many victims might have been spared? You were a child raised to trust, Dr. Whitaker said. Children are not responsible for recognizing their parents' criminality. I channeled pain into purpose. I joined a fraud victim advocacy group and eventually served on its board. We created resources for family members of white-collar criminals, people navigating betrayal and stigma. My marketing skills helped shape public education campaigns about affinity fraud. I spoke at community centers and retirement homes, urging people to verify claims and ask hard questions, even when it feels impolite. My most meaningful bond formed with Loretta Green. After the trial, I called each victim I could find, offering whatever support I had. Loretta and I became friends. "You remind me of my daughter," she said over coffee one afternoon. "She lives in Arizona. Same determination in your eyes." Loretta stood beside me at workshops, sharing her story with clear, devastating honesty. Her presence reminded audiences that victims are not foolish. They are trusting people caught in sophisticated psychological traps. We celebrated small victories. Her acceptance into subsidized senior housing, my promotion, the day she received her first restitution check for $3,000, a fraction of her loss, but symbolically enormous. I built new friendships in Atlanta with careful openness. Trust came more slowly, but it meant more because I chose it with intention. Calvin Brooks, a graphic designer I met through volunteer work, became central to my life. When I told him everything, he listened. "This shaped you," he said, "but it does not define you." 6 months into our relationship, a letter arrived from Mom. Pages in her elegant hand wove memories, declarations of love, and a soft push. If I testified about their positive parenting, perhaps parole would come sooner. I cried at my kitchen table. "She still sees me as a potential mark," I told Calvin. After a long night's thought, I wrote back a single paragraph. "I am building a life based on genuine connection and integrity. When you are ready to speak truth without manipulation, I will listen. Until then, I wish you healing and self-reflection during your incarceration." It was the last time we communicated. Dad never wrote at all. By the second anniversary of their arrest, I had defined family on my own terms. My circle included Calvin, Loretta, colleagues from the advocacy group, and friends who had stood beside me in the darkest days. I spoke to a support group for children of incarcerated parents and said, "Family consists of people who nurture your authentic self, who value your well-being above personal gain, who show love through action, not manipulation." I wrote in my journal that night, "The greatest freedom is building a life anchored in truth rather than comforting illusions." My family mythology was beautiful but hollow. This reality, imperfect, sometimes painful, but honest, offers a foundation for genuine connection that secrecy could never sustain. Difficult days still come. Holidays stir grief for tables that no longer feel like home. Songs and scents trigger memories of moments that seemed real but were staged. Yet peace has begun to replace bitterness. Despite their moral bankruptcy, my parents left me with unintended gifts: resilience, empathy for victims, and an unwavering commitment to honesty. We do not choose our origin stories, but we choose the legacy we carry forward. My parents chose deception. I choose transparency. They prioritized material gain over human connection. I prioritize integrity. They saw vulnerability as a chance to exploit. I see it as the ground where real trust grows. Every day, I lay another brick in the life I am building, one where promises are kept, trust is sacred, and connections are real. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me became the spark for a life that refuses to be lived in shadows. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.